Hello learners and welcome to your natural sciences lesson. So today we're going to be dealing with the effects of electric current. But before we start, did you know that the first electric light was made in the 1800s by a man called Humphrey Davy? So in this lesson, we're going to be looking at electric current and its heating effect and what it does when it is now having that heating effect in our surroundings. But then, for us to be able to get to that point, we need to set goals that you're going to be achieving or going through when we are going through the entire lesson. So what I want you to do is, by the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain the heating effect of a current, also be able to explain what a short circuit is, and then also need to be able to relate a short circuit to the heating effect of a current, and then lastly, describe a fuse. So, in order for us to achieve these goals that we have set, we are going to take the main idea, being the effects of electric current, and break it into small concepts that you're going to be looking at them individually, starting with the heating effect, and then the second one is going to be the electrical current. What do we mean by those two concepts? So now to start, there are certain things that you already know that whenever someone talks about the effects of or the effects of electric current, there are certain things that already come to mind when with regards to this topic. And this is what we already know, that an electric current is the movement of charge in a closed conducting circuit. So an electric current, it is the movement of charge in a closed conducting circuit. Also, we know that electrons can be transferred between objects, resulting in a charge on an object. So once electrons are transferred from one object to the next, there's going to be a charge on those two objects, the one that transferred an electron and the one that received an electron. The one that transferred will now have more protons than the electrons, which therefore means its charge is going to be a positive charge. But the one that receives the electrons will now have more electrons than the protons, so therefore the charge of that substance that received an electron is going to be negatively charged. And those substances that either transfer or receive the electrons, the ones that are now electrically charged, they are known as your ions. We can have a negative ion and a positive ion. So furthermore, in metals, we know that the electrons can move freely within the metal. So those electrons are known as your delocalized electrons. And then in addition to that, we also know that electrical cells are the source of energy for an electric circuit. So all the cells, either the battery, we know that a battery consists of cells, can be more than one cell. So if it's more than one cell, it's a battery that is going to be made up of the two cells. And then those two cells are going to be the source of energy to the electric circuit. So basically they supply the energy into the electric circuit. Now lastly, resistors are a bit of both an insulator and a conductor. We need to keep in mind and always remember that the resistors, those are the devices that allow the movement of electric current but do not make it easier for the electric current to flow. So therefore, that's why we're saying that they are a bit of both an insulator and a conductor, because these ones, they do not allow current to pass through, and these ones, they do allow current to pass through. So therefore, resistors, they do allow, but do not make it easier for the current to pass through. So therefore, they have both qualities of both the insulator and the conductor. Now, with what we know, can we then be able to answer just this simple question based on the components of an electric circuit? So we are supposed to complete the table by drawing the symbols of each component if we are given their functions. So we are given the functions of these components. What we are supposed to be doing is to draw the symbols of each of these components here. So the first one is a resistor. We always need to keep in mind that a resistor can be drawn in one of two ways. That it can be a zigzag to show that this is a resistor, or we can have a rectangle, again illustrating a resistor. So depending on which source you use as a textbook, they can either draw it as the first one there or draw it as the second one there. But then keep in mind that both of them, they denote a resistor. So both of them are a symbol of a resistor. Now the next one is a variable resistor. We now need to draw a symbol for a variable resistor, and its function is given there, that it is to adjust the value of the current or the voltage. Why does it do that? Because the variable resistor allows you to change the value of the resistance. Remember, this allows us to change the value of the resistance by manipulating it, either taking it up or taking it down. And we know that if we increase the resistance, the current of that particular circuit is going to decrease, because the current and the resistor or the resistance, they have that relationship that when the current goes up, resistance must go down, or when resistance goes up, current must go down. So those ones, they have that relationship, and the symbol of it is the following. So it is a resistor, but drawn it differently. So it's going to be that resistor with an arrow going through that particular symbol there. So now this shows our variable resistor. And then lastly, the battery. We know that its function, or the function of the battery, is to supply the energy into the circuit. So the battery supplies energy into the circuit. Remember, it can also be supplied by a cell, by just one cell, or it can be a combination of more than one cell. Hence, therefore, we're going to be having a battery. So a battery or a cell can supply energy into the circuit. Now, how do we draw the symbol for a battery? We know that if it's just one terminal, or two terminals, the negative terminal and the positive terminal. Remember, the negative terminal is shorter than the positive. If it's just that one, then that is a cell. Should we have more of these things, two or more of the very same things here, we are going to now have a battery. So if we have this again, this is now going to be a battery. We can have even three, a battery connected in the wires. Remember, this is your one cell, another cell, and another cell. So therefore there we had three cells that are making up a battery. So let's just draw it again. We have that. We said you're just going to draw three cells to form our battery there. So this is going to be our battery. And we do know that the function is to supply energy into the electric circuit. So throughout this lesson, there are certain words that you're going to be using. Some might be new to you, some may not be new to you. And those words are, we have a fuse, an electric circuit, an electric current, and then lastly, a resistor. So we're going to be making use of these words to better explain the entire lesson as you go along. So before we start with the first concept, let's go for a quick short break, and I will see you just after this.